morning. So do not be afraid of people. Whatever is now covered up will be uncovered, and every secret will be made known. What I am telling you in the dark, you must repeat in broad daylight, and what you have heard in private, you must announce from the housetops. Do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. For only a penny you can buy 2 sparrows. Yet not 1 sparrow falls to the ground without your Father's consent. As for you, even the hairs of your head will all have been counted. So do not be afraid. You are worth much more than sparrows.
Once upon a time, there was a woman driving through Oregon over the Cascade Range, and she ran into a tremendous snowstorm and became very frightened, as you could well imagine. And then she peered ahead and saw a snowplow. What luck, she thought. She kept as close as she could to the machine, and while it removed the snow from the road, she followed closely. At times, a heavy snowfall almost cut off her view, but her faithful guide kept on leading the way. And after some time, the snowplow stopped, and his driver got out and walked over to her. "Lady, where are you going?" he asked. "I'm on my way to Central Oregon," she replied. And he said, "Well, you're never going to get there following me. I'm plowing this parking lot." Her faithful guide. Think about that in your own life. You got faithful guides? Are they taking you to where you want to go, or where you ought to go, or where it would be good to go? I think about this when I think about the church especially, but also the teaching ministry of the church and the learning ministry that we have with our children. Quite frankly, most of us in most of our lives, hopefully not always, we follow the easy path. And as soon as we get comfortable, then we know the path is right. If we can see through the snowstorm, even though we're following somebody in a parking lot, it's good because we can see and we're comfortable and our fears are put aside and there's no risk because we're behind the snowplow. But what about when we can't see clearly? Then what happens to us? My experience with myself, and quite frankly with most church people, is that when we can't see clearly, we stick with the old way. Sometimes we stick with the old way when it isn't even working and probably never worked very well in the beginning. But we stick with the old way. Like the woman going around in circles. Isn't it interesting that she had no sense that she was just making these big, huge loops? She had no sense of that. Now, if you were driving in a snowstorm, even if you were driving in a snowstorm, don't you think you'd have a sense that you were just making these big loops? The truth is, maybe you wouldn't. Especially not if you're fearful. The loops would seem just fine, even though you were going around in circles. It's like a compass, In order to follow a compass, you have to trust it. These GPS systems we have in cars, some of you have them. Some of you don't even know what I'm talking about. But the GPS system sits on your dashboard and you punch in an address and it takes you there. If you punched in an address in New York City, it would tell you how to get there from here. If you punched in an address in California, it would tell you exactly how to get there. I was riding with someone, and the person who was driving the car punched in the address, and the person in the back seat looked at it and said, "That's not how you get there." Satellites, millions of dollars of technology, very brilliant people who call themselves engineers have built this system, and the person in the back seat said, "That's not how you get there." You've heard this many times, though, haven't you? "Oh, no, that isn't how we do it. That isn't how we get there. Must be something wrong here." There's a man named Parker Palmer who is an educational consultant and an author of several really wonderful books. And he's also a deeply committed Christian. He works in the world of education, much like Jesus, I think. But anyway, this is a quote from one of his letters that I wanted to share with you. The world of education, and I submit also the church, as we know it, is filled with broken paradoxes and with often lifeless results. We separate head from heart. Result, minds that do not know how to feel and hearts that do not know how to think. In 2 churches I pastored, because I sometimes get emotional in the pulpit, there were several people who left the church. And they weren't coming back because they don't want to see emotion in the pulpit. See, the head has to be separated from the heart. And he says we separate facts from feelings. The result, bloodless facts that make the world distant and remote, and ignorant emotions that reduce truth to how one feels today. We separate theory from practice. The result, theories that have little to do with life and practice that is uninformed by understanding. We separate teaching from learning. Result, teachers who talk but do not listen, and students who listen but do not talk. Paradoxical thinking in Parker Palmer's mind is just like the thinking of Jesus. There's a paradox there. Jesus said in a scripture lesson that Liam wrote, "What is spoken in secret, I ask you to shout from the rooftops." Paradoxical thinking requires that we embrace a view of the world in which opposites are joined so that we can see the world clearly and see it whole. Such a view is characterized by neither flinty-eyed realism nor dewy-eyed romanticism, but rather by a creative synthesis of the two. The result is a world more complex and confusing than the one made simple by either-or thought. But that simplicity is merely the dullness of death, like going around in circles in the parking lot. When we think things together, we reclaim the life force in the world, in our students, and in ourselves.